Welcome to Mind Your Health. David, I would like to introduce you to my friend Lauren Thomas. Lauren David, this is a treat to have her on Mind Your Health. And we're going to talk about something that I think is really underdiagnosed and overlooked. And you as a pharmacist, I mean, sleep is really important. I'm sure people come in for sleep aids all the time. Lauren, I'd like you to chat with us a little bit about your journey with narcolepsy, because it's been something that has impacted your life for a few years now. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. So I first started complaining about my sleepiness when I was 15, but I was not diagnosed with narcolepsy until I was 29.
Oh, wow.
So it was an almost 15-year, delay in diagnosis. When I was first kind of complaining about my sleepiness, I was taking naps. I would fall asleep in the car, before my mom even left the driveway. I would be asleep in the car on the way to school. I was sleeping, in the nurse's office, guidance counselor's office, in my car, and in restrooms. I was kind of always trying to find places to nap. And unfortunately, that kind of led me more into the mental health space. I had already been, struggling with, kind of teenage issues, depression, anxiety. So I was already under the care of, a psychologist, psychiatrist. So when my sleepiness presented, they kind of took it as, oh no, maybe she's depressed, maybe it's more anxiety. And I just kind of stayed in that bubble for a very long time. And unfortunately, never really received the quality of care I needed. Flash forward, when I was 27, I was working my first job. I had been there for 3 years, and my boss actually said, I really think you need to accept medical leave and take some time off and kind of figure out what's going on, because I know how hard you want to work, but there's something that's missing. I think there's something going on. So at 27, I took medical leave and still, went and saw my primary care doctor. I saw a neurologist. I saw an endocrinologist. And just kind of was, going through the ringer at that point. Also with narcolepsy, a lot of times there's, rapid weight gain, because when you aren't getting, quality sleep, your metabolism isn't functioning properly.
Let me interrupt you for a second and say, how was your sleep at night? Were you sleeping through the night, so it wasn't really an insomnia kind of feeling?
Some nights it was. I feel like my sleep was very disrupted.
Okay.
So I feel like I was never getting, 7, 10 hours straight, but I would, sleep for, 2, 3 hours, oftentimes have really bad nightmares.
Okay.
And then during the day, I would nap a lot and find kind of ways to get naps. So like my sleep schedule was very fragmented. But at nighttime, I feel like I almost kind of got like a boost.
So would you feel rested after the naps? Zero.
Never.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And those are some, I think for a lot of people, me included, I don't really know symptomatically other than the perception of someone falling asleep. Is that the only symptom in retrospect?
So the major symptoms are excessive daytime sleepiness.
Okay.
So typically having trouble staying awake during the day. Another symptom is something called cataplexy, and that's only found in narcolepsy with type 1, which is what I have.
Okay.
There's 2 types of narcolepsy, and the difference is, the presence or the absence of cataplexy. And cataplexy is when you have a sudden loss of muscle control, and it's often in terms of like heightened emotional states.
Okay.
So, it can, be a full body collapse. It can be a head bob. It could be, dropping a glass. Sometimes it can go very overlooked. It can, just be, a subtle movement. But other times, I've definitely had times where I've, fully collapsed and just kind of thought I fainted.
Oh my gosh.
But
You know,
looking back,
Do
it
you,
was
do you have any
most likely
idea?
bad timing.
Do you have any idea that it's coming, or is it just totally random?
Well, it's not it's always associated with the heightened emotional response, and so kind of once you know what your trigger is, like some people, it's every time they laugh, so they kind of
Ah,
know like if they're gonna be laughing, like
uh-oh.
maybe be if they're at a comedy club, they should be sitting down.
And that made
Um,
perfect
yeah.
sense.
but my
I'm sorry.
triggers have been more like fear, anger, like panic type responses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been kind of more my trigger. I haven't really had to experience it in, more uplifting situations.
What was it like to try to be diagnosed and find the answer to why you were not feeling good? I would imagine it's tough to diagnose. You're a young woman. Oh, just, get better sleep,
Right.
Do this,
Yeah.
you're fine. Did you find that was a challenge?
Yeah, I feel like when I was a teenager, it was very much like, oh, you're an athlete. You're, go to a, rigorous private school. Like, you're supposed to be tired. If you're not tired, something's wrong. You need,
Ah.
better time management skills. Uh, then, when I got to college, it definitely, I feel like, was my first time where I really ever struggled academically. I feel like I, wasn't, able to wake up in time for class. I didn't have, my mom dragging me out of bed. It was
Right.
like, I feel like a lot of the, supports that I had that got me through high school, it allowed me to succeed. In college, I was definitely on my own. It was very confusing, and I think it also came with a lot of shame as to like why can't I be better? Why can't I get to class? Why can't I stay awake? So there's a lot of like shame that does lead you
Creep
back into the
in.
mental health road, into the
Sure.
depression. So it's all kind of all encompassing. I also, because of being obese, a lot of times when you go to the doctor, the first thing they recommend is well, lose weight. Once you lose the weight, then we'll kind of readdress.
Oh,
They're not really
wow.
looking to be investigators until you kind of prove that you can abide by their guidelines, so to speak.
Did you have to be a steward or an advocate for yourself in order to kind of go on this journey?
Yeah, you have to, because along the way you just get a lot of people that share their opinion, and unfortunately you're not a doctor, you don't have medical experience to like be questioning them, so you kind of if you don't agree, you just have to keep going to the next provider and just kind of not giving
It
up. I
makes
had never even heard of the term sleep specialist. If I had known that that was something that existed, I probably would have, sought it out on my own.
uh-huh.
Um,
What
it
was
was,
what was it like for you to be diagnosed? What was it like for you to finally have a reasonable explanation for the way you were going through life?
um, it was definitely felt validating, but it also felt extremely. I feel like when like you find out that you have a chronic illness, something that doesn't have a cure, something that's not going away, that adds another layer of heaviness to it.
Okay, that's fair.
So, on one point it was kind of like, I told you so, I knew I wasn't broken, like, there's a reason for this. But okay, now how do I manage this to be able to, live the life that I, have always dreamed of?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So it's one thing to get a diagnosis. Another thing is, does it change my lifestyle? So now I have a name for it, but I still have to figure out what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or hey, I want to get married. Am I going to stay awake doing my wedding ceremony?
Right.
Or
So what, now what?
I have a big test coming, or I have children that I
Yeah.
have to take care of.
Right.
So
So what, now what? So now what? Where are you now within this process?
So now I am almost 5 years diagnosed, and I feel like even from 5 years ago when I was first diagnosed till now, there's been more medications that have been approved. It's kind of, all the treatments aren't perfect, but I do feel like I'm in a place where I feel like I have, control over my symptoms enough. I still have to take a nap every day. But I have, enough control over my symptoms where I, can, go to work. I can, drive again. I wasn't able to drive for a long time. I feel definitely just like feel like safer in my body, if that makes sense.
It does.
Exactly, it
Absolutely.
does.
Yep.
And you've been an advocate for people who do have narcolepsy. What are you doing in the field of narcolepsy now as far as advocacy and awareness?
So I am on the board of directors for an amazing nonprofit called Project Sleep. Um, they were founded by a woman named Julie Flygar, and I found Project Sleep because I read Julie's book. And Julie has a memoir that she wrote called Wide Awake and Dreaming that I highly recommend for anyone to read, whether you have narcolepsy or not. It's a great read, and I read it. I really related to her. She kind of was dealing with symptoms in law school, and really had to advocate for a diagnosis for herself. And once she got diagnosed, she really wanted to more focus on advocacy and started Project Sleep. And we go to DC once a year, and we go to Capitol Hill, and we have the Sleep Advocacy Forum where we partner with many different sleep organizations. They come, they share presentations, they share research. We had someone from the NIH come. And then the next day we go to Capitol Hill, and we meet with senators, we meet with congressmen, staffers, and we just share our stories to try and get hopefully more funding to go towards narcolepsy sleep research, but also just to more humanize people with sleep disorders. And just so if they don't know someone with them, you know they do, and now they know our story, because I feel like media in Hollywood has unfortunately been a disservice to people with narcolepsy. So just trying to get more real stories out there has been, a big major goal of Project Sleep.
Let me ask you a question about that. What is the impact about all the knowledge that you've gained through your lived experience and now education? Has it shifted your point of view on the importance of sleep? Because I know that with Mind Your Health, David and I talk about that as sort of a core element of health and wellness. And it's funny because kids, teenagers, CEOs oftentimes do the opposite of prioritizing their sleep. It's the guy who gets there at 6 in the morning and goes home at 7 o'clock at night that's rewarded, as opposed to the person who goes, sleep is really important to me. So what are your thoughts on sleep and prioritizing it as a really important facet of health and wellness?
Yeah, definitely. Since being diagnosed with a sleep disorder, unfortunately, I know that comes with unfortunate health outcomes. I'm more likely to have a cardiovascular event, more likely to have a stroke. Sleep is definitely, I feel like, just one of the four pillars of health. You need sleep, air, food, and water. If you have those four things, you'll be okay. I think that, kind of the hustle culture that we're in, unfortunately, is a disservice specifically to people with sleep disorders, but to, people as a whole, because I think, the American Heart Association recently added sleep to their, major pillars of health, as well as the American Diabetes Association. So I feel like the more, big health institutions, recognize sleep, hopefully, keep catches on, and then people won't be so stigmatized when they do say that they are sleepy, and they'll have more sympathy.
You've been amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things I want to touch on too is, so I get the 4 pillars, and even sleep, it's quite a misnomer, because you're like, oh, well, I got 5 hours, I'm good. You need deep, restful sleep.
Right.
Because people say all the time, I took a
Right.
nap this afternoon and I got 5 hours, I'm good. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. You
And-
need a specific kind of sleep.
Correct. And we talked about that in
Right.
Mind Your Health. We know that consolidated sleep is the most important. You need 5 hours of consolidated sleep and then a bonus. I mean, do you feel like you know everything there is to know about sleep and more now?
Not even close. I am always, eager to learn more, and I've learned more from you as well.
Well, there you go. I think it's a fascinating topic, and I think it's one that's coming to the forefront.
Well, and think about it, it's so hard to diagnose because, I have high blood pressure. I go in, he puts the thing on my arm and says, yes, you do. I take a medicine and it goes down and I'm good to go. Where narcolepsy, I have a teenage daughter that struggled with sleep, but in reading, many teenagers, their rhythm is not the same as adults. Their sleep patterns are completely different. But she never developed, they got better as time went on. She never obviously developed narcolepsy. So it's very situational, but it's also difficult to understand and work through.
Well, I think it's that same old thing, Lauren. Quit going to bed at 2 o'clock. Go to bed at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you have to get up, but school's a priority.
Right.
Did you find you went through a lot of just...
Oh, there was a lot of dragging out of the bed, cold water, just kind of anything to, get me into school, which, I'm not resentful over. I don't, my parents, one thing I can say about my parents, when I said I was tired, they never believed that I wasn't tired.
Right.
I just don't think that they had the understanding of, the depth of my, sleepiness and my fatigue. But anytime, I wanted to, go see this doctor, I did a lot of research. I want to see this doctor, even if it's out of pocket, they were down for the journey of trying to get to the bottom of this because they knew that it was something that I deeply struggled with.
Well, talking to you has really opened up a conversation I think a lot of people will be interested in delving deeper into. We appreciate your time. Again, Lauren Thomas talking about narcolepsy, talking about sleep. It's important and a great way for all of us to learn to mind your health.
Mind your health, mind your health, mind your health, mind your health.